what happens is that taking these vibrations as you stack them up, like I said, if you take the next closest note to a vibration, any particular vibration, is either a doubling of it or a halving of it. They're locked in hand in hand. We hear one as being intricately related with the other. Okay? So if you took all these, so what I did here, I wrote out, and this is only an example, like the number of cycles for each partial based on 100. On page 4, I talk about what an octave is. So going from 100 to 200 is the distance of what's called an octave. Going from 100 to 50, or half, is an octave. Going from 200 to twice as fast at 400 is called an octave. Going from 100 to 400 is 2 octaves. So 1 to 200, then double 200 to 400. Okay, make sense? So that's that sound. Page 5, what I did was I took these overtones and I started dividing them in half. So if I took the vibration of, let's say, the 8th partial, which is 900 cycles per second, and I kept dividing it by half, dividing by half, dividing by half, the game I was doing is, here's 100 cycles per second, its octave is 200 cycles per second. Then I took the partials as they manifested. I kept cutting them down by half until I ended up with a number in between the fundamental note and the first octave. So that's what and you can read this at home, but this is what I have here. I took the 8th partial, 900 cycles per second. I halved it. I halved it again. I halved it again. And finally, I cut it down by 8 times. I ended up with 112.5. I did that with each one until I got those numbers to fit in between 100 and 200 cycles per second. And then I ended up with what's known as, in Western music, as a major scale. Okay? This major scale is essentially the same scale that's in Indian music. There's a little bit of something called tempering. I won't discuss that. But anyway, what we've done here is we have eight notes lined up in a row. And this is what we call the 8-note major scale. It's a basic building block of music everywhere in the world. So this is a natural phenomenon. And that's how we end up with something called the major scale. These 8 vibrations, I've just numbered them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. 8 being the octave or the doubling of our original vibration. Okay? This little relationship is true for any vibration you pick. There'll be 8 notes, we'll have this scale, this is known as the major scale, manifests out of one note. Okay? This is metaphysical stuff. All I really want to do here is kind of, show you this. You can think about it. But I want to get into how musicians came up with the system and what in the heck you're going to do with this system, and, how it applies to you learning how to play an instrument and how you're going to think about what you're doing. So I could teach, I do teach music part-based. And in this class, I'm trying to teach using the mind, and I want to see how people take to that. I've tried this before. It's not for everybody. Some people thrive on it, some won't. But I just want you to know I'm not a one-sided dimensional teacher. I can teach both ways, but I'm trying this as an experiment to see if I can pass on a way of looking at music so that people have an understanding and feel empowered to go ahead and try this for themselves. So, okay?
Question.
Yeah, please.
Are there systems in music, and instead of dividing half, we go into thirds or some other?
No. I mean, I'm talking about basic physics here. Now, if you're doing, this is natural basic physics.
Yeah.
This is the physics of sound. This is exactly what the physics of sound is. Now, there are people who do, who create what are known as synthetic systems, which, sound really odd to us. Maybe if you live with them for a while, they sound pretty cool. I mean, there was a guy named Henry Partch, who was, an avant-garde composer, I think Lamont Young, who was one of Pandapranat's students, I think also did that type of work. Where you just create these purely mathematical systems which are not related to nature.
But you're sort of saying that all indigenous music systems.
All digital music
based
is
on
exactly. This is natural physical sound. So what we've ended up here is something you'll recognize. These 8 tones are. I mean, everybody recognizes that because it's the most natural thing we hear. This is It has to be based on this. This is natural sound. What the Japanese do is they omit certain notes. They don't play all 8 notes in the scale. They'll play. Yeah, there are different kinds of scales. So Native American music, some forms of blues music, African music, only will pick 5 notes out of a scale and not play all the notes. So it leaves kind of an ambiguous quality to the scale, but it kind of leaves it kind of open for you to explore. So, and you could once I show you the system, you'll be able to kind of do these things for yourself. Try picking 5 notes and just working with them. So, okay. There's an agreement with musicians all over the whole world except for the Japanese. So that 440 cycles per second is equal to an A. It's called an A. That's the middle A on it. For those of you who play piano, it's the middle A of the piano. And so conversely, 220 is A. 110, half of that is A. 55 is A, right? 880, 1760, whatever the double of 1760 is, all those multiples of 2 are all called A. So between this A and that A, you'll find the major scale, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, in that mathematical relationship that I kind of listed out on page 5. So, okay, makes sense?
So historically, was that particular vibration reached by sort of a process of negotiation among musicians, or did you see the same decision come up spontaneously?
I don't know how it came about, to be honest with you, but what it is basically the middle of the piano, for example, which is the vibration of 440, is pretty right in the middle of the human vocal range. We can only go so far low and so far high. We have a relatively limited range. We can hear more than that. I mean, obviously the piano's got 88 keys. I don't know of any humans that can sing 88 notes on a piano, the whole range. We have probably a narrow range of most of us maybe an octave and a half. So not that much. And you can develop sometimes reaching a little lower and reaching a little higher, but still we're limited physically. So and then men have a lower voice, and sopranos have by men's comparison, stratospheric, unless we go into falsetto, so that basically the selecting of this vibration was matching the human voice. So then you got like string bass, or electric bass guitar or something. They're down in this range here. The voice is probably somewhere, roughly in this area. You start getting up into here, you're into flutes, piccolo trumpets, different kinds of instruments, cymbals, triangles, that kind of thing.